Hey guys, this is Crystal Cook with ACDI, and we are going to do another Female Friday today. So right now I have Sue Dancer with me. She is the head of global marketing for PaperCut. Hey Sue, thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, hi Crystal, thanks for having me. It's a nice opportunity to connect and talk about some things outside of our normal everyday business.
Yes, so you guys know ACDI is an ASC of PaperCut, of course, and Sue and I had a chance to connect in person for really the first time, I think, recently at the Kanata Report dinner, which we were really excited to be able to get to do and sit near each other. So thank you so much for hanging out with me at the Kanata Report dinner. That was a lot of fun, and for the follow-up call afterwards.
Yeah, well, it was especially fun, at least for me. And being in Oregon, you might not be able to tell from my accent, but I actually live in Portland, Oregon. But being from Oregon, we're all masked up all the time. So we were able to get to the Kanata Gaylor event on the East Coast, where it was an unmasked event, but vaccination required. And it was quite liberating and a little terrifying all at the same time, especially coming from Oregon, that's, you know, so conservative about the masks right now. But really exciting to be able to get out there. And it's been, it feels like almost 2 years since we actually had the opportunity to have some real face time, you know, with anybody in the industry, but especially with, you know, you guys at ACDI. I haven't seen you for such a long time. So that was really, really exciting. And so I was really kind of thankful for the Kanata event for taking that step to actually be bold enough to try and pull everybody together in a room for a good cause and to celebrate some nice wins across the industry.
It was so much fun, but I'm like you, I haven't been to a large event and I haven't really been hugging people or anything. Nope. And at this event, it's just like, oh, what's up, Crystal? Bear hug. And I was like, oh, please work Pfizer. Please be working for me.
Yeah, totally. I have to say, I mean, I really was, you know, a little nervous because we've been quite, you know, restricted about the whole thing. So it was funny because we kind of switched the pandemic off for an evening.
Yeah.
So that was a breath of fresh air. So it was also, I would say, you know, quick call out to the Kanata team as well. And I don't know if we'll end up talking about this topic anyway, but you and I and a few others stayed around from, you know, some different organizations stayed around for the women's influencer brunch the second day, which I love, the fact that somebody in this industry has actually taken the time and the energy to put that platform out there, and to bring a community of women together, to be able to talk about, you know, the industry at large, you know, some of the changes that are occurring and just different challenges. And I don't see that a lot in this industry other than, you know, you doing it with these events. But definitely excited that we have somebody that's advocating for that opportunity for women to bring their voice to the industry.
Yeah, the Kanata Report does a lot for women, definitely. And I'm really grateful for the platform and the support they give to women in the industry. And for me personally with Female Fridays, it's amazing. And I was so inspired talking to amazing women. I came home and I told my husband, I was like, I was so nervous about going. I was kind of stressed, but I'm so glad I did that because I had so many amazing conversations about so many cool things. And it's got me pumped up, fired up, like ready to kind of go conquer the world. Right. Yeah. So just having that time together to kind of build each other up was really nice.
Yes, definitely.
So we had a call prior to this and we talked about the Kanata Report on that as well. And what was your biggest, I guess, thing that you noticed at the Kanata Report when we were actually all there together?
Yeah. So, you know, just a little background on me. So I have been at PaperCut for about coming up for 3 years in April-ish. And I was previously from an organization outside of the industry traditionally. I worked for Tektronix, who back in the day, and there'll probably be, you know, some people that watch this recording that are like, oh, Tektronix used to make color printers. Well, yes, they did. And they sold that business to Xerox. So, you know, back a long time ago, I did have a connection to, you know, the print industry, but not so much recently. And so it was a big change to me coming into this industry more recently. not one I was familiar with. So, I've had the opportunity over the last couple of years to not so much face to face in the last, 18 months or so, but, at some events and partner events, end user events, those kinds of things, to get a feel for what the industry is about, what the challenges are, who's working in the industry, who's an influencer in the industry, all of those things. So it was refreshing to get to the Kanata event and be able to, catch up with people, and see who's taken the awards, who's prominent, who's an influencer, who's an advocate for what's going on. But I have to say, it's like looking around the room, the thing that I think it validated some perceptions on my part. It wasn't just a new realization for me, but what really struck me was how, this is a very traditional industry that hasn't necessarily been innovated yet. There is some innovation creeping in, but it's still fairly old school feeling. But I couldn't help but look around the room and feel like, wow, there's a lot of white-haired people in this room. And I promise you that there's plenty of white hair kicking in here. So this is not an ageist comment. It's here, it's just colored. But yeah, it really struck me that along with that traditional feel, and along with all the camaraderie and the community and the strength of relationships and longevity that's in this industry, what you almost see happening in front of you is this aging out of an industry, with not a lot of new talent coming in. And our CEO of PaperCut, Chris Dance, he has a saying, and I'm not going to do it due diligence because there's a specific saying, and I don't have the whole thing, but he actually describes what PaperCut specializes in as being in the most boring part of IT. And I think there's an element of, yes, we're innovating in a part of IT that's not that exciting. But equally, that whole business technology area, a lot of aspects of, printers and workflow and scanning and those kinds, it's not super exciting. I don't think it's, what young people, new talent are going to be drawn to into this industry.
The statement that our industry is not sexy, and I was like, that's totally right. This is not a sexy industry.
But there is, I think, sexy opportunity in this industry, right? It's like there's opportunity to come in and innovate and help the industry think differently about some things, and so there's massive opportunity. But I think in order to bring that talent in, there are going to be organizations that have to rethink, how they want to position themselves, brand themselves, make themselves attractive and appealing to that talent, because the old way of structuring a business or building culture within a business might not be what's going to attract that new talent in. So I think that's a big challenge. It's not like today you can switch old culture off and spin new culture up tomorrow. And I think people's perceptions of what culture means to that younger group of talent is maybe not what it needs to be. So I think we're hung up on some perceptions of what culture needs to be for younger talent that maybe are misconceived. But yeah, so that was my, I guess, takeaway from one of the takeaways from the event. That was like, wow, there's an opportunity here, I think, to really, help organizations rethink how they make themselves attractive in the future.
I think a lot of businesses, and this isn't specific to our industry, it's probably in most industries, you have a successful business that probably started 40 years ago. They had a great business plan and they executed it well, and it was successful, and they were like, nailed it. This is the recipe for success. Absolutely. And this is what we're going to do. And that's worked for years, obviously, for them. But at some point, you have to update. You have to reevaluate your values and what your goals are to kind of fit the workers coming into the workforce, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you're right when you say we really need to look at our culture to attract top talent. And I have had conversations with some older mentors, and they kind of have a bad taste in their mouth when they hear the word like work culture, because to them, they think about kegs in the break room and people
Right.
playing ping pong all day and beanbag chairs and hacky sacks or whatever. And as you know, a millennial myself, as a mother and a wife, when I think of work culture, I think of flexibility to take my child to a doctor's appointment,
Yeah.
or to leave work early for certain things one day, or being able to work from home or work on the road.
Yeah.
And it's not that unheard of, because all of my time is spent in front of a computer all day long anyway. And I just want to be acknowledged and judged and credited from my work in production, not necessarily where I'm sitting that day, right? And that's what I think that some of the maybe presidents or CEOs of other companies just don't quite understand what we mean by culture, and like what young people are looking for. They're like, no, you need to come in every day, no exceptions, wear a suit. We have a ping pong table and we have happy hours on Fridays. And I'm like, that's not quite what they're looking for. That's not the best fit for them. What do you think of when you think of like culture from your experiences? What are you looking for? Like, what to you is like red flags in a culture?
Yeah, so I think, as you said, it's like lots of different interpretations and manifestations, of what culture might be out there. But, just picking up on what you said, you're a millennial. I think, in my head, I'm not a millennial. I'm not privileged enough to be. I'm one of the older ones. But in my head, I think millennial, and I, there's a little piece of me that thinks ping pong table. And when I came to PaperCut, sure enough, there were ping pong tables, and
ACDI has one too. I play it, but
and it was kind of interesting to me to kind of watch, how it worked and how people, interacted with the ping pong table, and when they interacted with the ping pong table. And it was definitely a millennial crowd that did it. But millennials are even aging out of that zone now too, right? Because millennials are becoming parents, and the needs change. And I think that's one of the really important things, is recognizing that, the demographic of your organization is quite mixed, and needs to become more mixed, right? So I think the key is understanding and listening and really hearing what, being willing to kind of hear and give platforms for people to voice what their needs are. Pandemic provided a perfect opportunity to test out some things around flexibility, right? But and remote working and things like that. But I think a lot of
don't get me wrong, some people couldn't cut it working remote. We had a couple people, right? Like, not everybody is fit to work remote. We get that, we understand that. But I think the key is flexibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think being able to flex to meet different needs. One size does not fit all. And bringing that into your organization, reflecting that in your organization and how you treat people, I think is going to be, ever more important. I think that, culture is, work culture is bigger than just work culture. It's culture, it's corporate culture, it's brand identity, it's all of those things. I think that, organizations need to be thinking about what is the brand identity that they want to put out there. Who are they and what are their values, and how do they want to communicate those to the world? Because whatever culture you build into your organization, that's going to be what your customers feel and see and hear at the end of the day. So that cultural piece is really important. Being able to kind of listen into, oh, I apologize. Apparently I didn't turn my phone off.
Oh no, it's real life. That's horrible.
I don't even know who it was. I don't know. Sorry if it was anybody important. But yeah, being able to actually kind of listen to what people are telling you and reflect that in your organization is going to be important, because it will impact your customers at the end of the day. And it all starts at the top. So spending some real time, I think, on understanding what values are important to you, And maybe even like looking for what are the kinds of values that younger generations are most interested in, and seeing what works for your organization and how you might bring that about in your teams. I would say that it really starts at the top. You can't, I've worked for organizations where, there are initiatives around, or we want to, make sure everybody's really engaged in their work. So we're going to have an engagement program. And we talked the other day about mandatory fun. Did we talk about mandatory fun?
We did.
Right. Mandatory fun. It's like mandatory fun doesn't work. So it's like, don't think that you can put the ping pong table in and the culture will happen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very authentic and intentional about thinking how you would like things to be and how you want your customers to feel, and then be listening to the needs of your teams and employees and partners in order to put that in place. We we give paper cutters a lot of opportunity to vocalize what's important to them. We have a big focus on culture at PaperCut generally, and I think it probably shines through in how we represent the brand, how we interact with our partners, how we interact with customers, and the product that we build. And one of the things that I noticed recently, like just in talking to different paper cutters around the world, is and asking questions about, why did you come here? Like, what was it that you sought when you came to PaperCut? And there's a fair amount of millennials in our organization, and things that people look for now that might be different from, maybe the generation that I was in, and what we looked for a stable job, that was, somewhere where we could progress, make decent money, have some stability,
and then never leave. That was literally what my dad taught me. He was like,
right.
You find a good job, find a boss you can get along with, where there's
right.
room to grow, and then you never leave.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
yeah.
okay, Dad, taking my little notes. That's how I got stuck in the restaurant industry, as I bought into that mentality for too long.
Yeah, but you also were a servant of sorts, right?
Yeah.
You did what the organization asked you to do, which doesn't always, while that machine works, you don't always get the best out of people.
Yep.
But if you can, catalyze the machine to work independently, with some kind of guardrails and guidelines in place, you get a lot more out of people than you might do otherwise. And so things that people were looking for that I think are fairly common, probably globally, but people seek out passionate leaders. People are looking for a meaningful purpose in a company's vision, and so things that you might feel are just kind of box checking exercises that you need in place in your organization. These things are really important and have a real impact on your ability to attract people into your company, and they deserve attention in their formation. People are looking for authenticity and connection and community and family. And yes, everybody talks about like they want a work-life balance. But if they're serving a meaningful purpose in the work they do, I think the balance will come more organically than it might do otherwise. One thing that's very important to us at PaperCut, and you talked, I think, a little bit to Lisa, our new marketing director in the Americas, is coaching and development. People are seeking development opportunities. Like that's a fundamental offering that needs to be part of what organizations are bringing to their teams. And it might not be that that it's about, how do we get you promoted? What's the next level of opportunity? It might be, how do we help you be better at the things that you want to be better at? Or how do we expose you to opportunities that might, help, expand your understanding of a different area of the business that may be valuable to you now or in the future, but giving people the opportunity to step outside their box, to learn something different, to innovate in their own minds, to just be exposed to new and different, because that's where innovation comes from. That's where fresh thinking and fresh perspective comes from. So being able to have access to that in a new role, I think, or in a role in an organization is really important. Leaving people to fester in their boxes, you get what you always got, to be honest. And then flexibility, you already pointed to, right? Flexibility is absolutely key for most people. Like clearly younger people have been telling us for quite a while that they don't value working in an office, despite the fact that, you know, as leaders in organizations, like, we want everybody to be in the office. And sure, I'd still quietly, between you and I, would like everybody to be in the office still, but that's not the way it's going to be. And I've had to learn myself that how to function at home in a role, because it wasn't, working from home was not my thing. But flexibility as a parent, as a mother, whether you be the mother, the father, or the guardian, or whoever, it's like flexibility to be able to manage your, you know, life priorities into your, you know, work schedule is definitely appreciated. And it comes in many forms, but I think understanding, you know, what that is that's important to people in your organization, or what could be important to prospective talent, working, you know, working mothers, new mothers, or, you know, people with disabilities. You know, flexibility will need to serve many forms. But yes, obviously lots of people looking for flexibility in different ways. And then I think the customer first piece, in terms of a mindset, I think that's something that is quite important to people too. Serving a customer versus serving a shareholder. I know that's easier for some organizations more than it is for others, but it serves the business well long term from a brand equity standpoint and a customer retention standpoint, which should feed the shareholder. But you know, sometimes you know, organizations, I think, will be biased towards serving the shareholder first and the customer second. And I think everybody loses out in the long run, and nobody feels good about that. But there's lots of things I think that people are looking for, and really truly, I think, to start to understand how you can build a culture that will serve those different needs. I think the opportunity is to talk to the people you have internally. You know, sometimes we do anonymous surveys, but nobody ever really believes they're anonymous. So, but giving people a platform to be open with their feedback and their thoughts without feeling like they're going to be, you know, punished for those feelings and thoughts, I think is really important. So finding a way to do that, I think, needs to be a priority. And then also, you know, dipping into the opportunity to network with companies outside of your traditional space. Who are some companies, you know, that you work alongside with, or you partner with, or you know, you respect in your local city, that are innovative, that are doing things differently, that are reimagining their workforces and their culture, and what ideas can you steal from them and try out and experiment with. There's lots of ideas out there. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to steal the good ones from other people in as legal a fashion as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that, because I get excited and I talk. So if I ever try something brand new that's super successful, I'm sharing it. I'm telling everybody it's open. You can still intake it. But one of my favorite things about ACDI is we all collaborate and we steal each other's ideas, and we give each other the credit for it because we're very supportive. You and I talked about how too much competition isn't always the best thing for these organizations, especially on the sales side, because people stop supporting each other and they quit sharing ideas, right? But also doing Female Fridays and just coming out to the Kanata Report dinner was such a big thing for me, because I heard so many tidbits and so many great ideas and things that I wanted to do, and I wanted to start incorporating immediately. And I think that's a big piece of what good culture is. You know, if you're a leader of a company right now and you're saying, hey, this all sounds great, but I don't even know like where to start improving my culture, and I don't want it to feel like mandatory fun, because if you try too hard too quickly to change your culture, it is going to feel like mandatory fun, and it's going to make it worse, right? And people don't fill out those anonymous surveys because they don't believe it's anonymous. But I think there's a positive way to just have one-on-one conversations with people in your team and say, hey, tell me what you love and what you don't want us to change, and then tell us what would make your day easier, or what would improve your work-life balance, or what would you just like a little bit more flexibility in. And those are all positive things. They're going to reinforce what they love about the company. So, you know, hey, these are the things I want to keep. And then you might get suggestions or have insights to team needs that you weren't even aware of. That might actually be a super easy fix for your company, that doesn't include buying kegs or buying ping pong tables, right? Like it's some of those small, minute changes that make the world of difference to those team members. And I think you can literally change your culture by just having conversations with your team.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% would echo that. I think the open conversation is important, and the listening is really important. So yeah, asking the right questions and being able to sit back and just listen and digest, reflect back what you think you heard. And you don't have to do everything overnight. You know, you can make one small change, and then check back in and see, you know, how that made an impact for people.
And even
But
if
I
you
think,
don't make a bunch of changes right away, people just like to be heard, right?
yes,
Just having a
that too.
conversation may make your team feel better.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And there are many tools out there. While nobody really likes the anonymous survey, it's like it is a great opportunity to really maybe benchmark and establish a baseline for how people are feeling about things, or what ideas they might have. And doing that on a regular cadence, I think also builds a muscle and a habit around asking for feedback and being given feedback. So even if everyone's not, you know, feeling 100% safe to broadcast everything, I think that just developing the habit of asking the questions and receiving the answers is a healthy thing to do, because it will, you know, help manifest some ideas about how you need to change and evolve your own organization. So yeah, I totally agree. I think that's important.
I say be intentional a lot because it applies to so many different things. It applies to making sure your company is diverse, that people are heard. And I think being intentional also has a lot to do with building that culture, right? I think a lot of things happen in ignorance and by accident that can kind of fester inside of companies. But if you have a couple of thought leaders that are always being intentional in these certain aspects and areas, then you can stay on the right track of things, right? If you always have someone saying, hey, I'm intentionally going to just go check up on the mental state of my team. We're going to intentionally make sure there's a female sitting on this panel, right? We're going to be intentional with certain things. It goes a long way, because if you're not, things start to slip through the cracks.
Yes, agree.
Well, we covered so much so far. My goal, guys, is always to keep this to about 12 minutes, and we're over. Sue and I have a long list of things that we discussed that we want to be talking about. So we are going to table it all for a part 2. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. And Sue, thank you so much for doing this. And I've had so much fun talking with you and Lisa. One, because you're our partners, right? PaperCut and ACDI. But also, it was just so inspiring and refreshing talking to new faces with new ideas that understand the industry, and we have the same end goals, right? So I've been inspired. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Crystal, for providing the platform. And also, I didn't say earlier, congratulations on being a young influencer for 2021.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to PaperCut for winning Best Print Management Software Provider. I'm going to have marketing like stick up a picture from the gala. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
This was great. Thanks, Crystal.